So even though this is the tail end of Storm Amy, there is the potential that winds are going to get up to 60 miles an hour or more tonight. So things might get a little bit spicy. Oh my. Well, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a wild camp in the good old Lake District at Easdale Tarn. Now I've camped here quite a few times in the past. Nice little spot, not too much of a walk in, about 4 miles up, 4 miles down. But if you've been watching my videos, you probably would have seen that last time I camped here I was using a trekking pole tent, the Gossamer Gear 2. And it failed on me basically because there was some wind that wasn't really forecast, and basically trekking pole tents, they're not really designed for high winds and they don't do particularly well. So on the back of that failure I decided that I was going to buy myself a Durston X-Dome 1 Plus, which is a freestanding tent, and that was going to be my 3-season wild camping tent when I was expecting the weather to be a little bit crappy. So what I've decided to do is come back to Easdale Tarn and to test out the X-Dome here. Now I'm actually at the tail end of Storm Amy, and the forecast is for about 40 mile an hour winds, but there's a potential for it to go up to 60 miles an hour. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think it's going to go to 60 miles an hour because I'm going to be relatively sheltered, and I don't particularly think that the X-Dome is the kind of tent that you're going to want to take out in 60 miles an hour wind. So just to be upfront, the chances are if it does start blowing around about 60 miles an hour, I'm going to probably end up bailing in the middle of the night, which is absolutely fine. I'm all prepared for that. But the idea here is I'm going to give the X-Dome a good test for its intended purpose, basically, which, as I've just said, is 3-season wild camping, but when it's a little bit shitty weather. Now I've put a couple of videos up recently about the X-Dome and a couple of issues that I've had with it. Now I think I've ironed most of those out. I've made a few mods, so it's all kind of working well now. So this is basically going to be my last wild camp before I make the final decision on the tent and decide whether it's going to become part of my collection or whether I'm just going to sell it on. To be honest, I think I'm probably going to keep hold of it because there's a hell of a lot to like about it, and I think now that I've ironed out the issues with the kind of inner and the outer touching, yeah, I think now that I've ironed out the issues with the inner and the outer touching, I think it's probably going to serve its purpose quite well. So we'll see. Anyway, tonight is basically the decider for it. So no pressure there, Mr. Durston X-Dome 1 Plus. You little mouthful, you. So at the moment it's a little bit breezy, not that bad, maybe around about 10 miles an hour or something. But it's supposed to be getting stronger kind of as the day goes on, and tomorrow morning is when it's likely to hit the potential of 60 miles an hour. That's according to MWIS and a couple of other weather reports that I've looked at. And like I say, because Easdale's only halfway up a mountain and it's quite sheltered, I think I'm going to get away with the brunt of that. But last time I camped here, when I had the issue with the Gossamer Gear, the problem is the gusts were really quite intense because I think they were coming down the valley and kind of compressing the way that wind does, and it was creating like really powerful gusts even though there wasn't much in the way of constant wind. There's a car coming behind me. So anyway, I'll just get off the road here, I think. So hi there.
Hello.
So what I'm going to be doing today as well is I'm going to be using the trekking poles just to bolster the kind of stability of the tent. Now I'm going to do that first of all, even though I think there's not going to be that much wind when I'm setting up. I'm just going to do it straight off the bat because I don't really fancy getting out in the middle of the night and trying to bolster it kind of in the dark while it's blowing a gale. So yeah, I'll just do that and we'll see basically what the full potential of the X-Dome is in windy conditions and how I find it. So as you may have seen in a couple of the videos that I've done, the very first time that I camped in this X-Dome, it was incredibly noisy and there wasn't that much wind, but there was enough wind that it was just causing this incredibly loud constant flapping. Now I think that was caused by the fact that the inner and the outer were touching on one side of the tent, and as I've kind of solved that little problem now, I hope that the wind issue is going to be solved as well. But what I'm actually going to be doing today as well is I'm going up fairly early, and I would say fairly early, it's still about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm going to have myself about 2 hours to set it up in the day. And generally speaking, I'm a bit of a lazy bastard when it comes to camping, and I don't end up going out until quite late on. And then I find myself trying to get everything done while daylight's fading. So I've got myself a good amount of time today to get everything set up and pitched perfect, which obviously is quite a prudent thing to do if you're going to be testing your tent in a storm, which is what I'm doing today. So in Wales yesterday, I think the wind got up to 80 plus miles an hour, the gusts anyway. I don't think it's going to be that bad today. This is, as I say before, this is the tail end of Storm Amy. So yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit blowy, but I don't think it's going to be too mental. So the aim of this tent is not to come out in it in 60, 70, 80 mile an hour winds. I think that's fucking moronic, to be honest. But I am going to try and test it in the forecast 40 mile an hour winds today. So there's been a fair amount of rainfall over the last couple of weeks because of this storm. Oh Christ, so this path is, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh my God, that was a hell of a lot deeper than I thought. That was about a foot deep, that. Yeah, lots of rainfall. None at the moment, and I'm hoping that the rain holds off because I really want to test the tent in the wind, not the rain. Rain's a bit of a knob and it can piss off. Fuck me. Oh, right in the bloody eye. If I was a fly, I probably would choose not to fly right into somebody's eye. I'm not entirely sure why they do this, but they do, and they're dickheads for it. Right in the, I mean, I see it. The mad thing is, I've seen it coming from a mile away, and I thought, yeah, it's not going to get out in the eye. It's in the eye. So I'm actually starting to feel the wind fairly strongly now, maybe 15, 20 mile an hour, which I know isn't particularly strong, but this place is usually really quite sheltered and doesn't get the wind that much. So I'm expecting when I get up to the tarn, it is going to be blowing quite a lot. So it's going to be fun setting the tent up. But that's what this is all about, you know, this is a bit of a controlled experiment basically, where I'm only 4 miles away from the car, it's fairly low level, and if things go pear-shaped in the middle of the night, I'm really confident that I'll be able to bail, get my gear packed up, and then make my way to the car without having to call out mountain rescue or anything like that. But all that being said, it's still going to be a little bit spicy, I think. Ooh, I do forget how busy things get in the weekends. It's very rare that I go out in the weekends. Actually, to be honest, I'm not going to lie, I actually thought it was Monday. I do lose track of my days quite easily. So yeah, when I got here and it was really busy, I thought, what the fuck's going on here? And then I checked and it was a Sunday, so yep. So I've got pretty high hopes for the X-Dome. I have seen some videos where it's failed in extreme weather, but that's not what I plan on doing with this, you know. I mean, I only plan on taking it out if there's a potential for it to get 30 or 40 mile an hour. I don't particularly enjoy going out in 60 mile an hour, anything like that. And I think, without trying to sound like a preachy bastard, I think you're probably a bit of an idiot if you go out deliberately in that kind of weather. You will of course want a tent that's going to be able to stand up to that kind of wind should it happen, but going out deliberately in it it's a bit of a different story, and it's not what I'm about. It is so busy, but you know what? I'm finding today that I seem to care less about what other people think, which is quite good. Hi there, mate. So I think usually I get into a bit of a flow and then someone passes and I feel really quite embarrassed and I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But I think I've realised today that people don't actually give a shit. I think it's just so normal nowadays for people to walk around with a selfie stick or something that people just don't really bat an eyelid, as they say, which is good. I think I've struggled in the past where it's been very busy and I've just had to do hundreds of bloody takes just because of the number of people. So, you know, a little bit of growth there. That's enough of that. Let's get on with the fucking hike. So luckily, still no rain. I mean, it definitely is going to rain. You can see that in the sky, but no rain at the moment, which is good. even though it's a bit gloomy, still a bloody lovely place this. So I'm about a third of the way up now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording and then crack on, make my way up to the top, and unless something happens in the meantime, I'll get back to you when I'm at the top and I'm ready to pitch up. So I'll see you in a bit. Well, as soon as I got to the tarn, I was hit with pretty strong winds straight away, so not mental, about 20, 25, something like that. So yeah, significantly stronger than on the way up. And I do think that it's going to get stronger overnight, so I think realistically I probably will be hitting 40 miles an hour later on. So it should be a pretty good test, because it's unlikely that I'm ever going to go out in winds that are forecast to be above 40 miles an hour in the X-Dome. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Let's get the pole sorted first. So I am going to have to make sure that these poles stay fully seated throughout, because that is, from what I've seen from other people's videos, that's what is probably the worst thing to happen. It's what can cause catastrophic damage. And from my experience, it's actually quite easy for that to happen, so it's a case of paying attention when you set this tent up, for sure. Right, okay, so I'll just get this out of the way for now. Just make sure that doesn't blow away, because that would be very shit. Right, so I've actually changed my mind and I'm going to pitch this head up just because there's a bit of a slope going on. So if you watch my previous video, you'll see that I actually put a little piece of bright green cord on the head, so very easily able to see which is the head end. So things like that, very useful. Right, I'm just going to stake this in just for now, just to keep it. Alright, probably got there, I think. Alright, so that is not in very well at all, but I think it's important that I just get it secured for now. Whoa, what me? Want to make sure that I don't stab it with my peg. I can feel it being tugged on quite a lot. Right, once I've got it set up, I think I'll move it to a better spot, but for now, we should be okay. Right, so at the moment, these two rear pegs are only halfway in, and these, because the wind's coming from this direction, they are the most important, so I'm going to correct that sooner rather than later. I want these to be in fully. Oh my god, sod's law, but it just won't go in. There's a big rock, whoa, a big rock underneath. Ah, there we go, that'll do, that's better. Right, so I'll put this in here for now. I'll get this sorted on the opposing side. It's always important to get the side that's going to be getting battered by the wind as secure as possible. So let's just twist it a little bit. I want to undo that. There we go. Right, okay, so fingers crossed. Yeah, there we go, that's it, that's in enough there. Right, make sure that's not twisted. Just making sure that these aren't twisted. Get down there, you. There we go. Right, so they're seated properly. Make sure that they so over there it's just come out of its seating, so I need to be careful of that. It's very, very, very easy for that to happen. Quite alarming really, but I guess what happens when things are ultralight. Right. Make sure that that's fine. Right, okay, that's good. Get this out of the way. Right, okay, so this should be good now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tension this a bit better, make sure that it's not twisted. So I'm taking my time here because I want to make sure that this is secure as possible. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip, and I'm going to go around and clip so that I don't create a bit of a sail, which is what can happen. If I was to clip all the way up here, the wind is going to catch it. So going all the way around is the best bet in weather like this. So I'll do a little wind measurement in a sec as soon as I've got this secure. I think it's about 25, maybe 20. It's not too crazy, but it's a bit blowy. Right, so it looks like the wind might actually be coming from a different direction than I initially thought. So I might need to rotate this. I'm just going to test to see which way the wind's coming from. Oh. Alright, so it's actually coming on more of an angle this way, so I'm going to rotate this tent now just so that it's not being hit from the side. That's currently 23 miles an hour. This is not too bad. I think it's going to get worse for sure. Right, let's see how I can do this. So I want to make sure, oh my god, whoa, that was not good. Whoa, that surprised me. Okay, obviously that's where these come into play, but I've never seen that happen with a tent before. Right, okay, that's got me a little bit concerned. Fucking hell. Right. Whoa, that is, considering that's fully staked out, that is deforming something rotten. I'm just going to move this over now just so you can see. Right, so the wind is kind of coming from this side and that side. I can't believe that's just kind of completely inverted itself. I think I'm going to need to rotate it around. I'm going to try and figure out the best way of doing that without it just taking off. So I think what I'm going to do is peg that there. Should be able to move this now. Right, okay, so I'm going to want this to be able to... No, that's not going in fully. Where can I get this going in all the way? Ah, that'll do. Oh my god, that is really quite bad for not even 25 mile an hour. Right, I'm just going to leave that for now. That seems to have come on now, there we go. Right, so this is proven to be a bit of a challenge. That is crazy. Can I get these two staked out? Right. Not entirely sure this is going to do too well today, but we'll see. There we go, that's in nice and tight. So I think this one is going to be the most important to get right. Wrap it around the pole. And this one is going to be taking most of the force, I think, so this one's got to go all the way in. Can't be having... Oh, that is in. Right, that's good. I'm glad that one... Right, let's try and get this tensioned up a little bit. Right, so once I've got this sorted, I'm going to then put the poles in, the trekking poles, just to give it that extra little bit of strength. This is going to be fun. Right. Now, I believe you're supposed to actually do this at the beginning, but I don't think that's always going to be possible, so I'm going to do it this way. I should hopefully be able to get it in place there. Just need to tell you what I'm going to do. Head under. It's in the right place here. There we go. It's easy enough to do. Okay, so that's actually the maximum extension there. So, with that being extended to the max, I should be able to hook this in, and then tension it. I don't really think that is too helpful. My head doesn't like that at all. Just do it this way, I think. Don't feel very confident about that helping. I guess it's going to help a little bit. Right, okay. Get this in around the other side. It's definitely got a bit more structure now from the wind. It doesn't feel like that adds a great deal, but it's going to be better than nothing, so I'm okay with that. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm putting these in exact opposition to the other side, which is what you would want to do with these guy lines. Right, so these guy lines make an absolutely massive difference. Without these, there's no way on earth this tent is suitable for wind. I mean, obviously. Right, now I haven't actually got guys here because I never really felt it were that useful. So I'm hoping that this is enough. I am actually going to buy some extra guy lines for this just to perhaps help, but we will see how that goes. So this is going to be the moment of truth, because I should see now whether the inner and the outer are touching. Let's have a look. Looking promising. You know what? They're not too bad at all, to be honest. This is getting a little bit of wind, as you'd expect. So let's have a look. Yeah, I mean, no, they're definitely. I'll just roll this up. And roll this up as well. Hey, come back here, you bastard. I do love them, they're very good. Right, I'll just wrap this around just for now, just to get that out of the way. Hopefully that'll stay secure. Right, so they can touch, but then again, I mean, it's still further away. It can touch on that side, but significantly easier to touch on that side. I think this is really loose. So if you watched the previous video, I tightened kind of this to pull it away, and I think that is definitely what I need to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few more knots in this just to shorten it. I think I'm probably going to need to do another 3 to make it 4 in total. I think I am going to, in the future, take this off. I don't know if you can see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, and I think I'm going to replace it with something that I can tension. So there we go. So that's a hell of a lot tighter now. That has made a huge difference to, yeah, oh my god, that is night and day. So yeah, if you've got problems where the inner and the outer touch, have a look at my previous video where I show you basically the last of 4 mods. That is definitely the most critical. That is not going to touch now, so very good indeed. So I think pulling that one further out will also bring the vestibule a little bit further away from the inner as well. I do need to make sure that I don't pull it too far out and that this can't zip down. I'll just give that a go now. I think it is all about the angles. So I've got it on this angle, but I think I need to bring it on this angle, right, much more around this side, and that is going to sort the vestibule out a bit more. And just double check that this will still shut. Oh, perfect, yeah. So definitely needs this bringing on an angle more this way, and I'll just check now that that's there we go. Yeah, that's much better, much better. Happy with that. I'll just bring all of my stuff inside now, out of the way. There we go. And then get that out of the way. Get myself a little peg so that I can peg this flappy piece of crap out the way. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little tiny piece of guy line there just so that I can easily peg it out. These actually do fit in, but it's a bit of a push, but it's enough. There we go. Right, keep them handy. So it's still quite early, it's only 4:30, so I've still got an hour and a half, 2 hours of light left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything set up in here, batten it all down, go around the whole thing and just double check that it's all good, and then I'll probably just go for a little wander around just to kill an hour or so. A little bit of an issue with this touching the inner, which is where my head's going to be. So I think what I need to do is I need to move this kind of on more of an angle to pull the inner out a little bit. So hopefully we can do that. So I'm going to move it over this way so that it's on that kind of an angle. So that should hopefully tighten the inner a little tiny bit by having it on more of an angle this way. And another thing that I've noticed, I don't really feel like this is helping much, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and then I'm going to add a little extender to it. So let's get one of these out. So this should hopefully help. So I'm going to extend this out to here to create more of a gap there. So there we go. Push that right in and then give that a bit of attention. Right. So this is not as bad as it was the other day, but I'll just wait for a little bit of wind to pick up just so you can hear. Literally all you need to do is just like touch. I'll shut up and let you listen. Like a didgeridoo or something. So on the outside, you can see what's causing it. So basically I think if I just use that to dig into the ground, but then use this to come out, that should hopefully I'm pretty happy that I've got this set out as good as I'm going to get it. I've got all of the corners as tight as possible without being over tightened. I've got as much of a gap at the back as I possibly can. I've got both trekking poles set up, so hopefully that's going to provide a little bit of extra structure. So even though it collapsed before, as soon as you start pegging all the extra things out, you know, it does start getting like noticeably stronger, as you'd expect. I was quite shocked, to be honest, about how the way it just caved in, because you know, that was still pegged out with 4 pegs, and I pretty much would expect any of my other freestanding tents to maintain its shape with just 4 pegs. I regularly camp out in kind of semi-windy conditions without staking out the 4 guy lines on my Trekker tent sear. I just don't think there's any way at all that those cross poles are going to bend in the same way that did. So this has took almost an hour to set this tent up, which is pretty mad, to be honest. But I've kind of been learning as I go on. I've been trying something out and, you know, hearing a noise, seeing if I can correct that. So all of this will kind of help next time I set the tent up, and obviously I'll be able to do it much quicker then. I don't think for 1 second it's going to take me an hour to set this tent up every time we use it, but I do think it's going to take a lot longer than the Trekker tent sear or my other Hillybergs and things like that. So quite interesting, but at the end of the day it's also just 1 kilogram, so it's a hell of a lot lighter than the other tents, so I can't really judge it by the same standards. You know, this is an ultralight tent, and to be fair, it's 20-25 mile-an-hour winds at the moment, and it is holding up okay. You know, it's kind of bending in and that kind of stuff. It's essentially acting like I would expect the Trekker tent sear to act in 40 mile-an-hour winds. So I'm okay with that, to be honest. I won't be taking this tent out in excessive winds. This is a test. It's a control test. I'm only 4 miles away from the car. If things go to shit, I'm gonna be ready to pack up and just head off. You know, I think things are going to get windier, so I think it's going to get quite sketchy. I'm not imagining I'm going to get a huge amount of sleep, but I'm quite pleased to say that I've sorted out that noise. I've sorted out the tensioning. So there are things that that really did bother me the very first time I did a camp. I've addressed all of that now with the various mods. 100% solved it. So I'm really happy about that. I mean, do I think that I should have to mod a tent for it to start working properly? Not really, but I do thoroughly enjoy modding stuff, so I don't mind at all, to be fair. So I am actually starting to see rain landing on the mesh here from the vent, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that vent, It's not dripped down yet, but I can imagine over the night it really would start coming down. And the last thing I want to do is have to go outside in the middle of the night while it's pissing down and really windy to close the vent. So I'm just going to preempt that, and I'm just going to close it now. Because I've really extended the fly on the head end and the back end, I don't think there's going to be a problem with ventilation anyway, and I'm going to leave this side open, so I think we should have the wind kind of coming through and going out. So I don't think that vent is actually necessary today, so I'm going to go and close it. So I'll catch you in a bit after I've had my little hike, where I'll be cooking some delicious spaghetti bolognese and I'll be scoffing a massive bloody chocolate bar. So I'll see you in a bit. So it's fairly gusty at the moment, and the maximum wind speed I've captured at the moment is just under 30. I think it's probably only going to get to around about 30, 35, but who knows. Tent is holding up quite well, to be honest. It's quite stable once you've got everything kind of refined and pitched perfectly. It actually is quite a stable tent, which I'm happy about. And in the interest of being fair, when I did first get the Trekker tent Seer, I was gutted with that one too, because the inner was so baggy, it was absolutely ridiculous. But after doing some mods, tightening it all up, you know, I'm extremely happy with that tent. I think now that I've got the hang of what I need to do in the corners and the little mods that I've put on this tent, I think that I'm pretty happy with it, and I think it's going to be something that I'm going to keep. That is something that I will leave until the morning to make my final decision on, because obviously I'm going to have to try and sleep in it tonight with this wind, and it is forecast to get a little bit heavier as the night goes on, but I don't think it's going to go above 40. But to be honest with you, that's absolutely fine by me. This has currently stood up to around about 30, and it feels absolutely fine. So as I said at the beginning of this video, the idea behind me getting this tent was, if the wind is going to be too high that I don't feel comfortable using the Gossamer gear as a trekking pole tent, then this is what I'll use. And also, if I'm going to go somewhere where I think footprint is going to be a bit of an issue, then I'll use this tent. So I think altogether, unless things go terribly pear-shaped overnight, this is going to be a keeper. I think there's a hell of a lot to like about this tent, and I think it's probably only going to take me like kind of 10 minutes to set it up each time going forwards, now that I know exactly what I'm doing, and I can live with that. You know, if it's going to be robust enough to deal with 30-40 mile an hour winds, then that's a small price to pay. Obviously, if it's going to be higher than that, then I'll just take the Trekker tent Seer. Right, so I'll get myself sorted to this spag ball. I'm not actually sure if you're going to be able to hear me very well because of the ruffling and the wind and all that kind of stuff, but hopefully you can. I do really enjoy having a vestibule. As much as I've said I don't really like vestibules, I do enjoy having it. I just prefer more room inside my tent, but I mean, obviously I've got the room that I need. And even in proper two-man tent, I always put all my stuff down one end anyway, and then I have a load of free space. So this tent really does make sense for me. Right. So according to the forecast, it's going to get to its windiest in around about an hour, so that'll be quite interesting to see. Okay. There we go. So on this particular pitch, I can see what Dan Durston was talking about the way that the inner twists a little bit, and he said it's by design. He said there's a technical reason, and they've done lots of research and stuff on it. Obviously that's a bit beyond me. I can see what he's talking about. So yeah, I think now that I've tensioned everything properly at the back, and I've added the mods to be able to pull the back out much further, this is almost zero chance that the inner and the outer are going to touch. To be honest, like I'm suitably impressed with how well it's putting up with this wind. You know, it is fairly gusty out there, and there's quite a lot of flapping. To be honest, I'm probably going to swap ends so that my head isn't right next to all that flapping. Oh, shite. We've got a boil. That was quicker than I was expecting. Yeah, so I think I might swap ends just to have myself a better night's sleep. But the angle isn't really correct for that, which is always a pisser. I did find last time I camped on the wrong side, and I feel like I probably preferred it. I think that in the summer, when I'm likely to have my quilt open, I think camping with the wide end at the head, it probably makes a lot more sense because you can have your quilt open. But I didn't find myself feeling that claustrophobic or anything with the kind of narrow end over here. So that's cool. Titanium is absolutely fantastic. How fast it cools down. It. So if you've not seen the video of me cooking the dehydrated spaghetti bolognese, which is what I've got here, I'll put a link to that up here or up there. Or I've never done this before, so it'll be up somewhere. Oh, that's quite hot. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my boots off and then close this vestibule over and kind of get myself comfy. Yeah, so I keep trying to get a wind reading from outside, but it's raining so much that I just get soaked even if I just stick my arm outside. So the highest I've had so far is around about 28, but it feels like it's kind of windier than it was then. So I'm thinking it's around about 30, 35. Not the windiest, but you know, in terms of what I'm likely to use this tent for, this is probably about it anyway, so that's absolutely fine by me. And we'll see, you know, it's still the night is still young, as they say. Yeah, I mean that's definitely windier than it was before when I measured 27. So I mean, I'm pretty good at gauging wind, and I would say that that's around about 35. So, but it's gusting. There's almost no kind of constant wind, which is quite interesting. It's almost entirely gust. So anyway, oh, there we go. This is looking good, looking good. I did put too much water in here, but only a little tiny bit too much, so I don't know if you can see in there. You can see the bolognese right through there, so not too bad. I think everything taken into account, I do really like this tent. I've had some teething problems, obviously, with kind of getting it all set up, but I think now that I've perfected that, as it were, I think it's a really nice place to be. It's really quite spacious, and I am enjoying having a vestibule. It is an absolutely genius idea to have a half vestibule, half double width inner. So simple, but really so bloody effective. So, yeah. Massive brownie points for that. I think I'm always going to sleep this way round, to be honest. I just think it makes so much more sense. All of the doors are on this side, so I find it really strange that that would appear to be the head end. So when I initially kind of envisaged using this tent, I had always kind of thought that I was going to be down that end, and because, you know, the quilt's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. But to be honest, you've still got, I think, let me just push myself all the way up there. You've still got a good foot's worth of room here, so with an extra wide mat, which is what I always use, you've still got a fair amount of room to be putting your quilt. So I think, unless it's really hot and I'm going to have it completely spread out, I think the chances are I'm just always going to sleep on this side. So take that, Durston. So yeah, a bit of a learning curve today, even though it's me third time wild camping in it. What I did this time, different than all the other times, is I gave myself a good hour or two of light so that I could properly tinker with it. Where normally I kind of plan my hikes and I'm setting up and then I've got half an hour before it's kind of gone dark. So this time I gave myself a bit more time to play, as it were. So unless anything crazy happens in the middle of the night, I'll see you all in the morning. Well, good morning. Bit of a rough night last night, sleep-wise, as you'd expect with all that wind. But the tent held up really well, I think. So I'm quite pleased with that. It's a really, really well-made tent. It's quite elaborate, but you can see that everything's kind of been done purposefully. So I can definitely imagine that the kind of twist and everything that Dan Durston was talking about in the corner has probably been done. Like, there's probably been about 5 or 10 iterations where he's had them at different lengths and... There we go. That's a bit comfy. There we go. Got a really sore neck. Nothing to do with the camp. Just had it for the last week or so. Moan. Anyway, if you're enjoying this video, if you feel like you've got anything from it, please do consider viciously uppercutting the like button just to let YouTube know that you've enjoyed it, and then it'll show more people. And if you're not already subscribed, do consider having a little look through my catalogue of videos and hit me up with a subscribe. That'd be very nice of you, very decent. Yeah, so what I particularly like is there's like some tensioning going on. I don't know if you can see here, but at the bottom where the zips all kind of join, there's tensioning. So this is actually in conjunction with the little magnetic pull. This is actually it's the easiest zip that I've ever had on any tent. Normally you have to kind of hold it with 2 hands to get the tensioning right, but everything just seems to be tensioned really perfectly. So, you know, the zips they're really kind of nice and slick. They travel really well. So I do really like the kind of inside of this tent. Obviously the whole, as I've said many times, the whole vestibule kind of extra space thing going on is absolutely perfect. So yeah, I mean, I've said this right from the beginning, there's a hell of a lot to like about this tent. And I think now that I've ironed out the little faults that I found with it, there's pretty much only things to like about this tent. It's definitely going to take a little bit longer to set up. It's going to be a little bit more fiddly than I'm used to, but you know, I'll get used to that. And I reckon it'll probably take me 5 or 10 minutes to get it set up. And last night, the forecast was for about 31, 32 mile an hour winds, and I think that was right. I only measured 27.9 or something. Excuse me. Yeah, 27.9 or something like that was the highest I measured. But I definitely heard and felt higher gusts than that. I just didn't have the little machine out at the time. I tried to measure some last night just to get like an accurate reading, but it was driving rain and I was just getting absolutely soaked trying to get the measurement. So I decided that I couldn't be arsed. There were some pretty vicious gusts that I think were probably going up to maybe 35. So I'm fairly good at judging wind speeds, and I think I would say that it went up to 35 on occasion. And even though the forecast was for the winds to be high at around about 8 or 9 o'clock, that did happen, but there was a few periods in the middle of the night where it was really quite rough, and the forecast had it kind of dropping down. It was really quite calm this morning, which is, you know, as was forecast. This is a very sheltered location here, but what it does is, because it's in like a little bit of a basin, the wind kind of comes down off the peaks that are surrounding it, and it kind of channels right to where I am. So it seems to cut out the wind but not the gusts, or it almost seems to make the gusts worse. and kind of unpredictable, which is definitely what I found last night, and what I noticed on a previous camp where the gossamer gear was damaged because of a very severe gust. Yeah, I've had no issues with the inner and the outer touching, so that's been rectified. That's a combination of me kind of tightening up the tensioner on that side, and then kind of changing the angles. So a bit of a learning curve setting this up yesterday, but I think I've got it all sorted now, and I think going forwards I'll be able to get it set up much quicker. Yeah, so as I said before, it's really elaborate on the inside. Lots of kind of angles and things going on, and then I'll find something that I think might be a fault because it's not symmetrical, but then when I check on the other side it's the same as well. So you can definitely see that there's been a lot of thought put into the tent design, and most likely a bit of trial and error. I can imagine that he's had one of these built where it was perfectly symmetrical, but it created a particular issue, so he's modified it, brought it in by a few centimeters, tried that version. So yeah, a lot of respect, a lot of props to Dan. I know I was a bit moany about this tent, but to be honest, you know, like it was noisy, it was having condensation issues, and I had both of those issues today, well yesterday, last night, when I was setting up the tent. And if it wasn't for the mods that I've put in place and for kind of constant tweaking, they would have still been a problem. So yeah, like I say, I'm used to making little mods on tents. I think it's just part of it. I quite enjoy it, so it doesn't really bother me that much. So I think I've got this tent to a point where it's absolutely going to be staying in my collection. It did really well in the wind last night, wasn't particularly noisy, didn't have any condensation issues, and it felt quite stable. So yep. So from this point on, I'm going to have the Gossamer Gear, the 2, which is going to be my ultralight proper 2-man tent for like kind of mostly summer. I'm going to be using this for more technical 3-season camps, or when there's going to be sort of adverse weather. The Trekker tent Seer is going to be my 4-season winter tent, or when there's really bad weather. And then I'm going to have the mesh bivvy, which is just going to be used every now and then for when I'm being discreet as possible, or I'm going to go to a really technical spot where you're just not going to be able to pitch a tent. So yeah, I mean, I'm saying that now, but I'm always swapping my tents around. But I feel like I do have the perfect 4-tent garage, as it were. I think you cover pretty much everything.
Oh well, that's me all packed up and on my way down. So yeah, I'm really quite happy with the outcome of that wild camp. I've put together 4 videos now, kind of highlighting the hell, oh my neck, oh my god, my neck. I don't know what the is wrong with my neck. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna have to go and see a fucking neck surgeon. Oh my god. Made that. Oh god, that was bad. Oh, imagine if I'm gonna die, it's gonna be like that. I'm just gonna do a stupid little tiny slip, paralyse myself, and then just get eaten by crows. That's how I'm destined to go. Christ, I can't even look up now. My neck is. Yeah, so I've had a bad neck for the last week or so, and it's really bloody bad. That's just totally jolted it. Christ, that I feel in shock a little bit after that. Bloody hell. I mean, I appreciate it was a very feminine scream. Apologies. Yeah, so I've put together 4 videos now, kind of highlighting the little journey that I've had with this X-Dome, and it's basically gone from me being completely gutted about it to thinking it's actually fucking brilliant. It is a really good tent. It's incredibly well made, and you know, at 1 kilogram, you really can't fault it. I expect there to be sacrifices when you go ultralight, and my experience in the past is that things are a little tiny bit more fiddly when you go ultralight. So if it takes me an extra 5 minutes or so to set the tent up and do all of the tension in at the end, then that's fine. It is what it is, as long as, you know, it does its job and it's not going to collapse in a little tiny bit of a gust. But as I said before, I think it hit 35 last night. not as strong as I was expecting, but the tent barely moved. It was moving maybe kind of laterally 2 inches either direction, so really quite stable. Anyway, that's it, my little wild camp and ramble over. If you've enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing and giving the video a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'm almost at 1,000 subs, so if you can help me get there, that would be most appreciated. So anyway, that's all from me today, and I'll see you on the next one.